Hello, I'm Dr. Angela Moore, and this video is about creating a strategy to manage absenteeism. Absence is the largest unplanned expense companies face daily. CDES technology has worked with many organisations around the world to help them manage their shift operations more effectively. This video is for all managers, aimed at helping people gain a better understanding of how to cover absence. Understanding your absence rate is the first step towards controlling your absence costs. Your absence rate will tell you how many hours you need to anticipate will be required to cover for absence next year. If you are planning a cover arrangement policy, then it is not enough to just know how many hours of absence you will need to cover for. You also need to know how these absences will occur. My ebook, Understanding Your Absence Rate, is filled with tables to help you plan your absence strategy better. Here is an example of how to use your absence rate to estimate how much resources you need to minimise the effect to the operation. So if you are having problems with absence, your absence rate is 2.5%, which is the national average. You have 19 staff on a shift, using 12-hour shifts. The operation is a 24/7 operation. That would mean there are 730 shifts per year. Now on average, that is less than one person absent per shift. So managers would assume that having one extra person on shift would solve the problem. However, they would be wrong. You have allowed for one person to be absent and staffed up to 20 per shift. So why are your staffing levels still not right? Firstly, averages are deceiving. The average human has less than 2 legs. You need to understand the distribution far more than the average. So CDES technology has created a model to estimate the distribution. So if there is always one extra person on shift, how many times per year would you expect to have the correct staffing level? This figure shows an extract from table 65 from my ebook, Understanding Your Absence Rate. This figure shows what would happen if absences occurred randomly, and you had an absence rate of 2.5% and operated a 24/7 shift pattern using 12-hour shifts. Across the top are the number of people you would expect to be absent on shift. Down the side are the number of people on shift. Hence we are looking to see how many people would be off if there were 20 people on shift. We go down the rows till we get to 20 on shift. Then that row tells us how many times a year we'd expect 0 people to be absent, 1 person to be absent, 2 people to be absent, etc. In this case, on 440 shifts, no one would be absent. On 226 shifts, there would be 1 person absent. On 55 shifts, there would be 2 people absent. On 8 shifts, 3 people would be absent. And 1 shift, 4 people would be absent. It would be highly unlikely that you would experience more than 4 people absent from any shift. So if you had 1 person on shift to cover for absences, then only 31% of the time, or on 226 shifts out of the 730 shifts, would you expect to have the correct staffing. This means that on 504 shifts per year, you will have either too many or too few staff available. Why is the answer so low? Well, on 440 of those shifts, no one was absent, and you were paying out money for no benefit. On 64 shifts, more than 1 person was absent, so you were understaffed and losing out on income. So more often than not, the operation is incorrectly staffed, in fact twice as often, which is a very poor return on your investment. So no wonder that managers are frowned on by both senior management for overspending on absence and yet not getting it right, and by shift workers for not having the cover there when they need it, at least once a week. So what are the solutions? You have 1 cover person on each shift. However, you need to find something for them to do when they are not needed. Alternatively, you could consider what would happen if they could cover both the day and the night shift. Then you would have 2 people on cover per day. So each day you would have 40 people coming in to work. 2 of them don't know if they will be working the day or the night shift. So that is table 45, 2.5% absence rate for 365 days of shifts per year. This figure shows you an extract of that table. As you can see, on 133 days, no one would be absent. On 136 days, 1 person would be absent. On 68 days, 2 people will be absent, and on 28 days, more than 2 people will be absent. Well, 2 people covering days and nights wouldn't do you any good, because statistically you could have up to 5 people off on any day, so you'd still be overstaffed on 269 days and understaffed on 28 days. A better solution needs to ensure that the operation is correctly staffed at lower costs. This would be to have 4 people on call every day to cover both shifts. So let's consider the cost of this solution. We will ignore holidays. If there are 19 people on each shift and 4 teams, you have saved 4 people's salaries, 1 person from each team. So you employ 76 people. No one likes to be on call, and you have 4 people on call every day of the year. That's 1,460 times every year, divided by your current staff. Each person would need to be on cover 19 to 20 times per year. However, they would only be called in 5 times on average. They would be paid overtime when called in. This would only happen a quarter of the times they're on call. So you could offer them an on-call premium of 1 hour per cover shift if they were not called in. So the cost is calculated by the cost of overtime when called in, and the on-call premium when not called in. On 362 occasions, they would be called in to cover a shift. That's 4,344 hours at overtime rate. On 1,098 occasions per year, they would be on call but not called in. If they were paid time and a half overtime and single time when not called in, the cost would be the equivalent of 7,614 hours at basic rate. That would be less than the equivalent of 4 people's salaries you have saved. So even though you have paid overtime payments and an on-call allowance, you are still saving more money than the salaries would have cost you. So the cost is lower than the current arrangement. You would never be overstaffed, and statistically you would only be short on about 1 day a year by 1 person, not 64 shifts as before. Also, everyone on the shift pattern would earn more money. On average, they would earn about 5% more than on the current arrangement. Hence, you have a better operation at a lower cost, and everyone earns more money. This is a good example of how understanding your absence rate can help you manage more effectively. You can use your absence rate to predict not only how much resource you should budget for, but also how to use that resource to its best advantage. Planning your resources. Each year, you need to consider how to cover for your absences. Your absence rate will tell you the number of hours you need to budget for, and the tables in my ebook, Understanding Your Absence Rate, will give you the distribution of how you would expect these absences to occur. How often you would expect no one absent, 1 person absent off a shift, 2 people absent off a shift, etc. This is the first ebook ever produced that allows you to convert an absence rate into the number of people off shift. This allows you to better control absence-related problems because you can set up procedures for each scenario, and this book tells you how many scenarios you will have to deal with each year. So the problem reduces from a different problem each day to a handful of different scenarios that are repeated. So you can set up a procedure for each scenario, then every day you have a solution to your absence problems. My book allows you for the first time to formulate your absence management plan on predicted events for the forthcoming year. This means that you can plan from a position of knowledge rather than misremembered, highly improbable events and misleading averages. Understanding Your Absence Rate is available from Amazon at $9.99 or £6.59. CDES Technology works with organisations around the globe to help set up shift patterns and construct strategies and procedures to ensure that the operation runs smoothly and effectively. If you would like to find out more, please visit our website or contact us directly. Thank you for listening.